Chosen one, if your soul has been whispering, "God, where are you?" then pay attention, because this moment is not an accident. You didn't click on this message randomly. Something in your spirit has been aching, searching, reaching for answers that no one around you has been able to give. You've been walking through a season of spiritual silence, praying without hearing, seeking without finding, crying without comfort. And in that silence, you've begun asking questions Christians rarely admit out loud. Why isn't God answering me? Why does it feel like He's far away? Why does my life feel stuck while everyone else seems to move forward? If you felt forgotten, overlooked, or spiritually abandoned, this message is for you. Chosen ones often face the deepest faith struggles because their calling carries weight. When God is preparing you for something bigger, His silence becomes the battlefield where your spirit is tested. This season isn't just emotional, it's spiritual warfare. It's a divine calling. It's God's timing unfolding in ways your heart hasn't fully understood yet. Before we go any deeper, I want to ask you something. What question have you been asking God lately? What prayer has been sitting heavy on your heart? Tell me in the comments. Sometimes your testimony becomes someone else's breakthrough. And if this message already resonates in your spirit, subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss what God is revealing to His chosen ones. Now breathe, because what comes next will shift your understanding entirely. Let's uncover the truth behind God's silence, because once you understand this, your entire journey will shift. When God goes silent. Have you noticed that God becomes the quietest right before something major shifts in your life? Chosen one, if you've been walking through a season where heaven feels distant and your prayers echo back in silence, you are not alone, and you are not abandoned. In fact, you are in one of the most spiritually significant phases of your entire journey. Divine silence is not God ignoring you, it is God preparing you. It is the stillness that comes before a breakthrough, the hush that settles over the battlefield before heaven moves. But when you are in the middle of it, that quiet can feel heavy, confusing, even painful. This silence often arrives after you've prayed with everything inside you, after you've sought answers with sincerity, after you've cried out in desperation. You expect God to speak loudly, to show you a sign, to send clarity. But instead, everything grows still. It feels like your prayers are floating unanswered. It feels like your strength is running out. It feels like your hope is thinning. And the enemy uses this silence as an opportunity to whisper lies. You're forgotten. God is tired of you. Nothing is going to change. But those lies only sound loud because God is quiet. Yet here is the truth. God's silence is not evidence of His absence. It is evidence of His strategy. In Scripture, some of the greatest movements of God were preceded by silence. Before miracles came stillness. Before breakthroughs came waiting. Before the transformation came seasons where it looked like God wasn't doing anything. But behind the veil of silence, heaven was working in ways people could not see. The same is true for chosen ones today. When God becomes quiet, it is because He is arranging something in the unseen that your heart isn't ready for yet. Divine silence is a spiritual classroom. It forces you to deepen your faith. It trains your spirit to listen differently. It matures you. When God withdraws the noise of His voice, He invites you to discover Him in deeper ways. Through inner peace, through intuition, through discernment, through quiet confirmation, through spiritual growth. His silence is a refining fire, purifying your motives, stripping away distractions, and sharpening your dependence on Him rather than on circumstances. Chosen ones experience silent storms more intensely than others because your calling demands inner strength. Your destiny requires clarity. Your anointing is built in seasons of stillness. God quiets Himself not to torment you, but to teach you how to hear beyond sound, to recognize Him through presence, not just words. And the silence forces you to confront the parts of you that still need healing. The fear of being alone, the wounds of abandonment, the doubts that surface when prayers take too long. God allows silence so those hidden battles can rise to the surface and finally be defeated. Emotionally, divine silence can feel like being pulled in two directions. On the one hand, your faith insists that God is still at work. On the other hand, your pain insists that nothing is changing. You wake up believing, but you go to bed wondering. You try to trust God's timing, yet your heart aches for answers. This tension is not a sign of weak faith. It is the birthplace of strong faith. True trust is not proven when God speaks clearly. It is proven when God speaks softly or not at all. Spiritually, this silence is a transition zone. You're no longer who you used to be, and not yet who you are becoming. God has closed old doors but hasn't opened new ones yet. You feel suspended between seasons, like the whole world is moving while you stand still. But in reality, you are being repositioned. God's silence is the cocoon phase of your calling, the place where transformation happens quietly, invisibly, and profoundly. Many chosen ones discover that after the season of silence ends, clarity floods in like light breaking through a long night. Suddenly, everything makes sense. The delays make sense. The rejections make sense. The heartbreaks make sense. The waiting makes sense. You realize God wasn't ignoring you. He was protecting you from premature answers, wrong paths, shallow connections, or rushed decisions. So if you are in the quiet right now, if heaven feels still and God's voice feels distant, understand this. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. You are not being forgotten. You are being formed. You are not stuck. You are being positioned for what comes next. Because God's silence is never empty. It is full of purpose. And once you understand what He's doing behind that silence, your entire journey begins to shift. The invisible work of God in your darkest hours. What if I told you that the moments you felt most abandoned were the moments heaven worked the hardest for you? Chosen one, this truth might shake you. The nights you cried yourself to sleep, the mornings you woke up feeling numb, the seasons where everything felt cold, empty, and painfully quiet. Those were the very moments when heaven was moving with the most intensity on your behalf. What felt like abandonment was actually divine activity. What felt like silence was actually a sacred covering. What felt like the absence of God was actually the presence of God working where you could not see. You may never fully realize how many battles God fought for you while you were unaware. Spiritual warfare doesn't always appear as dramatic visions or frightening encounters. Most of the time, it is invisible, quiet, and happening in realms your natural eyes cannot perceive. The enemy plotted destruction while you slept, but God intercepted it. People planned harm in private conversations, but God dismantled it. Doors that would have derailed your destiny were shut before you arrived. Relationships that would have drained your spirit were removed before you recognized their danger. The promotion you didn't get was actually protection. The delay you hated was a divine rerouting. The heartbreak that shattered you was a rescue mission in disguise. Heaven has been moving around you, shielding, defending, and preserving you in ways your mind will never fully understand. The reason you survived attacks you never saw is that God fought them long before they reached you. There are angels assigned to your life, warriors who contend for your spirit, who block what was meant to break you, who war against forces that want to steal your peace and distort your purpose. You didn't see those battles, but you felt the exhaustion. You didn't witness the warfare, but you lived through the heaviness. You didn't watch the enemy retreat, but you sensed the pressure lift. That wasn't a coincidence. That was God working in the invisible realm. In your darkest hours, when you whispered, "God, are you even here?" Heaven was closer than ever. Divine intervention doesn't always reveal itself in miracles you can see. It reveals itself in disasters that never happened. It reveals itself in dangers you avoided without knowing. It reveals itself in the peace that returned slowly, like a dawn after a long night. Some of your greatest blessings were the battles you didn't have to fight, the betrayals you didn't discover until long after God removed the threat, the paths you didn't take because something inside you felt uneasy. God's presence often hides itself to strengthen what lies within you. If you always saw his hand, you would never learn to trust his heart. If you had always heard his voice, you would never have developed spiritual discernment. If he always explained his reasons, you would never grow in faith. The invisible seasons, where you walk by faith and not by sight, prepare you for assignments that require deeper spiritual maturity. God is never inactive. He is never indifferent. He is never slow. He is never absent. He is strategic. He is intentional. He is protective. When you prayed and felt nothing change, it wasn't because God ignored you. It was because he was working behind the scenes to answer your prayer in the way that aligned with your calling, not your comfort. There were moments when darkness tried to swallow you whole, but God stepped in. There were seasons where despair wanted to break your spirit, but God whispered strength into your soul. There were times when you nearly lost yourself, but somehow, something pulled you back. Something you couldn't explain. That something was God's hand, wrapped around you in silence. Think about the times you barely held on. Think about the nights when you thought, this is the end for me. But it wasn't. Something carried you through. Even when your faith was too weak to stand, God stood for you. Even when you stopped praying, God did not stop protecting you. Even when you questioned him, he never questioned his plans for you. Chosen one, the invisible work of God has been the foundation of your survival. It has been the unseen thread weaving through every moment of your life, binding your story together, shielding you from unseen harm, positioning you for breakthroughs you didn't know were coming. You didn't survive because you were strong. You survived because you were covered. You didn't make it through because you knew what to do. You made it through because God fought battles you didn't see. You didn't rise because life was fair. You rose because heaven refused to let you fall. The darkest hours of your life were not proof of God's absence. They were proof of his protection. And once you understand this, the silence you've endured will no longer feel like abandonment. It will feel like preparation for the next chapter God is about to reveal. Why God hides you before he uses you. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why your life feels on hold while others move ahead? If you've ever looked around and felt like everyone else is accelerating while you're standing still, understand that you are living through one of the most important spiritual phases a chosen one can endure, the season of being hidden. This is not stagnation. This is not punishment. This is not failure. This is a divine strategy. Before God ever elevates a chosen one, he hides them. He pulls them away from the noise, the distractions, the wrong environments, and the wrong people. He places them in a season that feels paused, but in reality, it is a season where heaven is shaping you for what's coming next. Spiritual isolation is one of the most misunderstood experiences among the chosen. It isn't loneliness, it's separation. God removes you from certain circles, certain relationships, certain opportunities, not because you are unworthy, but because what he is building in you cannot be influenced, diluted, or corrupted by outside voices. When God hides you, it feels like doors close for no reason. It feels like people suddenly distance themselves. It feels like opportunities slip away before you can grab them. But what looks like rejection is often God's redirection. What feels like abandonment is actually protection. Divine separation is painful because your human heart sees loss, but your spirit is undergoing purification. God isolates you to prune you, to cut away anything that cannot go where he is taking you. This pruning season strips away old habits, old identities, old wounds, old cycles, old fears, and old connections. You may feel like you're losing everything, but in truth, You are shedding everything that would sabotage your calling. This is why the chosen often experience intense seasons of transition with no explanations. One moment, your life feels stable, and the next, everything is shifting. But these shifts are not random. They are the fingerprints of God rearranging your path for elevation. Closed doors are some of God's greatest gifts. You may have cried over relationships that ended, jobs that fell through, friendships that drifted, and dreams that dissolved. But if God allowed it to close, it was never meant to carry your future. There are doors God refuses to open because what's behind them would delay you, derail you, or deceive you. There are people God removes because your spirit is growing and theirs cannot follow. There are opportunities He shuts down because they are too small for the destiny He designed for you. When you're chosen, His no is often the strongest sign of His love. The hidden season can feel unbearable because it contradicts everything you've been taught about progress. You feel overlooked while others shine. You feel unheard while others are praised. You feel delayed while others race ahead. But the chosen ones are not shaped in public. They are shaped in private. You are being built behind the scenes, far away from the eyes of the world, so that when God finally reveals you, nothing and no one will be able to deny the anointing on your life. Look at the biblical patterns. Every single person God used powerfully was hidden before they were elevated. Joseph was hidden in prisons and pits before he stood in a palace. Moses was hidden in the wilderness for 40 years before he delivered a nation. David was hidden as a shepherd long before he became king. Esther was hidden behind palace walls before she saved her people. Even Jesus himself lived for 30 years in quiet obscurity before his ministry began publicly. Every chosen one experiences divine concealment before divine assignment. This season is not about being unseen by people. It's about being seen by God. He hides you to break your dependence on external validation. He hides you so you stop measuring your worth by comparison. He hides you so you learn to hear His voice rather than chase approval. He hides you so your foundation becomes unshakable. When God is preparing a chosen one, He allows silence, separation, and stillness to shape their identity. He makes sure no one can take credit for your breakthrough, so that when He elevates you, everyone will know it was Him. Many chosen ones misinterpret this hiddenness as failure because the world equates visibility with success. But in the kingdom of God, hiddenness is the birthplace of greatness. Your character is being fortified. Your discernment is being sharpened. Your spirit is being strengthened. Your heart is being purified. God is removing everything that could contaminate your destiny. And while others are racing ahead in their own strength, you are being prepared to move in God's power. In this season, it may feel like nothing is happening, but everything is happening. Heaven is aligning people, places, opportunities, and timing around your calling. God is working on the stage while you remain behind the curtain. When the time is right, when you are healed, ready, mature, and spiritually anchored, God will suddenly pull back the curtain, and you will step into a level of purpose, influence, and clarity that will make every waiting season worth it. Chosen one. If your life feels paused right now, it is only because God is positioning you for a launch that will outpace everything you've seen before. Trust the hiding. Respect the pruning. Embrace the silence. Because when God hides you, it is only because He plans to reveal you with glory. How your pain became a divine training ground. Before God ever trusts someone with glory, He tests them with pain. Chosen one, this truth may hurt at first, but it will liberate you once you understand it. The pain you went through was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to develop you. Every heartbreak that broke you open, every betrayal that cut deeper than words, every loss that hollowed your chest, every disappointment that stole your breath, none of it was wasted. It all became the training ground where God shaped your spirit into something powerful, unshakable, and spiritually dangerous to the enemy. You didn't suffer because God abandoned you. You suffered because God was preparing you. Pain is the furnace in which chosen ones are refined. It is where your faith is strengthened, your character is purified, and your spirit is sharpened. You cannot carry a divine calling on a fragile foundation. You cannot walk in spiritual authority without first surviving spiritual adversity. And God knew that before He ever entrusted you with purpose, He had to allow certain storms to strengthen your endurance, deepen your wisdom, and remove the people, habits, and illusions that could sabotage your destiny. Think back to the heartbreaks that shattered you. In those moments, you weren't thinking about destiny. You weren't thinking about growth. You were thinking about survival. But that heartbreak taught you something you could never learn in comfort. It taught you resilience. It taught you to rise even when your soul trembled. It taught you how to let go of people who were not aligned with your spirit. It taught you that your worth is not tied to who stays, and your purpose is not dependent on who walks away. Pain broke you open so God could rebuild you with strength instead of fear. And then there was betrayal, the kind that felt like the ground was ripped out from beneath your feet. Betrayal is one of the deepest pains a chosen one experiences because it strikes through trust, loyalty, and innocence. But betrayal sharpened your discernment. It taught you to listen not just to words, but to spirits. It trained you to recognize false intentions, deceptive hearts, and hidden agendas long before people reveal themselves. Betrayal made you wise. It made you spiritually alert. It made you capable of seeing in ways others cannot. You grew from it, not because the betrayal was right, but because God used it as a tool to elevate your spiritual maturity. Loss carved a space inside you, an emptiness that felt unbearable at times. But in that emptiness, God planted compassion. You learned how to empathize with the broken. You learned how to sit with people in their pain. You learned how to love deeper, feel deeper, and understand deeper. Loss stripped away your illusions, leaving you with a heart that beats with sincerity. Only those who have suffered deeply can love purely. Only those who have been broken can truly heal others. God used your loss to create a well of compassion inside you, one that He will later use to comfort those He places in your path. Struggle, too, was part of your divine training. The seasons where nothing seemed to work, where every door slammed shut, where you felt stuck in place. Those were the seasons where God built endurance. He taught you how to persevere. He taught you patience. He taught you how to trust Him even when the way forward was invisible. He taught you how to pray not only for answers, but for strength. Struggle taught you how to fight spiritually, how to resist the enemy, and how to rebuild your life with God as your foundation instead of temporary comfort. Every emotional wound became a spiritual weapon. Your heartbreak developed empathy. Your betrayal developed discernment. Your loss developed compassion. Your struggle developed endurance. The very things the enemy used to try to break you became the tools God now uses to send you into your purpose with authority. Pain didn't weaken you. It activated you. It awakened your spirit. It forced your roots to grow deeper. It stripped away pride and replaced it with humility. It shattered your illusions and replaced them with truth. Pain pressed you into God in ways comfort never could. And this is why chosen ones survive what destroys others. You were not built in easy seasons. You were built in fire. You were shaped through tears. You were strengthened through storms. Everything you went through was purposeful, intentional, and necessary for the calling God placed on your life. Not everyone could have survived your story. Not everyone could have endured the weight you carried. But you did, because God held you even when you felt like letting go. Pain was your teacher. Pain was your preparation. Pain was your transformation. It forced you to let go of who you were so you could become who you were meant to be. It broke the old version of you so the divine version of you could rise. The version that can discern spirits. The version that can pray with power. the version that can lead, the version that can love with depth, the version that can stand firm in spiritual warfare, the version chosen by God for a larger assignment. So if you're wondering why your life was filled with so many painful chapters, understand this. God trusted you with experiences that would destroy others because He was training you for a destiny that others could never carry. You were not ruined by your pain. You were refined by it. And what God is preparing you for next will make every tear, every wound, and every silent battle worth it. What God is building inside you, that emptiness you feel, it's not emptiness. It's God clearing space inside you for something greater. Chosen one, you may look at your life right now and see gaps, places where things fell apart, relationships that ended, opportunities that slipped away, seasons that feel hollow, emotions that feel heavy. But what you call emptiness is actually divine construction. You are not being emptied to be abandoned. You are being emptied to be rebuilt. When God prepares a chosen one for a higher level of purpose, He begins His work on the inside long before anything changes on the outside. And often the first sign that God is building something new within you is that He removes everything that can no longer support your future. Spiritual growth rarely feels like growth. It feels like being stripped, stretched, challenged, and shifted. It feels like losing what once felt stable. It feels like stepping into unfamiliar emotional territory. But beneath the confusion, God is expanding you. He is refining your character, sharpening your spiritual senses, and deepening your understanding of who He is. You're not losing yourself. You're evolving into the version of you that your calling requires. God cannot place a new anointing inside an old container, so He first dismantles everything that would limit what He plans to pour into you. Character refinement is at the core of this season. God is shaping your patience, humility, courage, discipline, and emotional maturity. He is teaching you to respond instead of react, to trust instead of panic, to endure instead of collapse. You may feel sensitive, unsettled, or fragile, but that is because God is uprooting the parts of you that were built in survival mode. He is replacing instinct with intention, fear with faith, and impulse with wisdom. This internal renovation may feel uncomfortable, but it is essential. Before God expands your influence, He strengthens your foundation. Wisdom is another layer of His construction. You may notice that you've begun seeing life differently. You're more aware of patterns, more cautious with people, more observant of spiritual shifts. This is not paranoia. It is spiritual maturity. God is teaching you how to interpret life through discernment, not emotion. He is teaching you how to identify lessons hidden within delays, redirections, and disappointments. The wisdom He is building in you now will later protect you from counterfeit opportunities, deceptive people, and distractions that seek to sabotage your destiny. Discernment is also being sharpened. You can feel when something is off, even if you can't explain it. You notice energy shifts, spiritual heaviness, emotional inconsistencies, or hidden motives. You may have thought you were overthinking, but in truth, God is upgrading your spiritual radar. He is teaching you how to see beyond words and actions, how to detect truth beneath the surface. Chosen ones cannot move into their calling without heightened discernment because their future requires them to lead, influence, and impact others with clarity, not confusion. Prophetic intuition is another dimension God is awakening inside you. You sense when something is about to change. You feel nudges, impressions, warnings, and confirmations in your spirit long before your mind understands what's happening. You may experience dreams, sudden clarity, or strong internal shifts. These are not random. They are part of the divine blueprint being developed within you. God is training you to hear Him in subtle ways so that when He speaks loudly, you'll know exactly how to follow. Patience is one of the hardest yet most important traits God builds in His chosen ones. You are being taught to trust His timing, even when you want answers now. Patience is not waiting calmly. It is waiting with faith. It is resisting the urge to rush into what looks good and instead holding out for what is truly aligned. God delays certain things not to punish you, but to protect you from premature blessings that would backfire or responsibilities you are not yet equipped to carry. Every delay is preparation. Every pause is a lesson. Every moment of waiting is God strengthening your endurance for the weight of the destiny ahead. Inner strength is forged quietly. You don't always feel strong, but look at everything you've survived. Look at the battles that didn't break you. Look at the nights you thought were your end, but turned out to be turning points instead. God has been toughening your spirit. He has been stretching your capacity. He has been teaching you how to stand firm even when you feel weak. This strength is not loud, it is steady. It is the kind of strength that keeps you from collapsing under spiritual pressure. Resilience is the final layer God builds in His chosen ones. You've learned how to get back up after disappointment. You've learned how to heal after heartbreak. You've learned how to rebuild after loss. Resilience is not just surviving, it is transforming. It is the ability to adapt, persevere, shift, and grow in the face of adversity. This resilience will become one of your greatest weapons, because destiny requires people who know how to rise repeatedly. Chosen one. You may not see progress right now, but progress is happening. Your spirit is growing even when your life feels slow. Your heart is being healed even when the process feels painful. God's construction is invisible but intentional. He is preparing you for connections, opportunities, and callings that would overwhelm the version of you that existed before this transformation. What you call emptiness is God clearing out the old. What you call waiting is God preparing your steps. What you call delay is God protecting your purpose. What you call silence is God strengthening your spirit. You are not being stretched to break. You are being stretched to expand. Heaven is preparing you for something far greater than you imagine, and every internal shift is a sign that God is building the destiny He promised you. When this construction is complete, you will understand why God had to empty you first. The real reason your prayers seem unanswered. What if God already answered you, but not in the way you expected? Chosen one. There is a truth many believers never learn, and it is this. Unanswered prayers are often answered prayers, just not in the form you were looking for. When you pray, heaven does not ignore you. God does not remain silent out of indifference. The delay you feel, the confusion you battle, the silence that frustrates your spirit, these are often signs that the answer already exists. But it is arriving in a way your human expectations cannot yet interpret. We are taught to expect big signs and clear direction, but God often answers quietly, subtly, or in disguised form. Sometimes His answer is yes, but it doesn't look like a blessing at first. Sometimes His answer is no, but it feels like rejection when in reality it is protection. And other times His answer is wait, which is the hardest response of all. Because waiting feels like nothing is happening when in truth, everything is happening. Many chosen ones misinterpret God's answers because they expect something dramatic or immediate. You think God isn't responding because the situation hasn't changed. You think heaven is silent because the door didn't open. You think God ignored you because the person you prayed for didn't stay. But what if the change you expected was not the change God intended? What if the blessing you wanted had become a burden? What if the relationship you prayed for had drained your destiny? What if the door you begged God to open had led you to spiritual danger? God's no is often His greatest mercy, even when it hurts. A denied prayer can save you from years of heartbreak, confusion, or destruction. Many of your deepest disappointments were not signs that God didn't hear you. They were signs God loved you too much to give you what you thought you needed. You prayed for someone to stay, and they left. You prayed for a plan to work, and it collapsed. You prayed for a door to open, and it stayed shut. But what you saw as loss was heaven's way of redirecting you. Divine redirection is one of God's most powerful answers. Instead of giving you what you asked for, He leads you toward what aligns with your destiny. You may have prayed for comfort, but God gave you growth. You may have prayed for stability, but God gave you strength. You may have prayed for restoration, but God moved you forward instead of backwards. God answers prayers through movement, even when that movement requires endings, shifts, or painful transitions. Sometimes God answers by removing. Sometimes He answers by delaying. Sometimes He answers by shielding. Sometimes He answers by replacing. Sometimes He answers by rerouting. But He always answers. There are prayers heaven answered long before you realized it. Protection is an answer. A closed door is an answer. A sudden uneasiness is an answer. A relationship that falls apart is an answer. A delay that makes no sense is an answer. Silence is an answer too, because it forces you to stop listening with your ears and start listening with your spirit. Chosen ones often discover that God speaks clearest through what He does not allow. The opportunities that disappeared were never meant to stay. The people who walked out were never meant to remain. The path that crumbled under your feet was not meant to carry you to your destiny. Heaven aligned your steps not by giving you everything you prayed for, but by giving you everything you needed, even when your heart didn't yet understand the difference. And then there are the hidden yes moments, times when God answered in ways so quiet you didn't perceive them until later. You prayed for strength, and He gave you a battle that made you stronger. You prayed for wisdom, and He allowed experiences that sharpened your discernment. You prayed for purpose, and He took you through seasons that stripped away distractions. You prayed for clarity, and He removed people who clouded your judgment. You prayed for peace, and He ended relationships that disrupted it. Heaven aligns your prayers with your purpose, not your preferences. And when you are chosen, God's priority is not your comfort. It is your calling. It is your destiny. It is your spiritual growth. God answers prayers with the future in mind, not just the present moment. He sees the entire path, while you see only the next step. This is why you must trust Him, even when His answers do not match your expectations. You may feel forgotten, but you were actually being guided. You may feel overlooked, but you were being protected. You may feel delayed, but you are being prepared. God is not ignoring you. He is aligning you. Your prayers have power, and heaven responds to every one of them. Just because the answer doesn't look like what you imagined does not mean God didn't move. Divine answers often require spiritual eyes to see, and chosen ones learn over time that God's silence, God's redirection, and God's timing are some of His clearest responses. So if your prayers seem unanswered right now, don't lose heart. God may have already answered you, just not in the way you expected. The reason the enemy attacked you while God remained silent. Have you noticed that spiritual attacks intensify in the same season God feels far away? Chosen one, there is a reason why your hardest battles always seem to happen when heaven goes quiet. The silence of God and the noise of the enemy often appear together, not because God has abandoned you, but because you have entered a crucial moment in your spiritual development. When God is preparing to elevate you, He allows a quiet space around you, and whenever that space opens, the enemy tries to slip in. Spiritual attacks always intensify when your spirit is being refined. The enemy senses the shift long before you do, and he launches attacks to break your confidence, weaken your faith, and confuse your sense of direction. The enemy has studied you since birth. He knows your fears, your wounds, your insecurities, and your habits. He knows when you feel spiritually disconnected. He knows when your prayers feel weak. He knows when you're tired, discouraged, or emotionally drained. And those are the exact moments he intensifies his attacks. Not because you are weak, but because you are dangerous. He sees what God is building in you. He sees the spiritual authority rising inside you. He sees the strength forming in silence. And the enemy attacks potential, not past. He goes after the chosen because he knows your future carries impact. When God grows quiet, your senses sharpen. Your spirit becomes more alert. Your faith begins to mature. Silence is the environment where God teaches you to rely on His presence, not His voice. But it is also the environment where the enemy tries to twist your thoughts. God doesn't care. Nothing is changing. You're praying for nothing. You're alone. These lies echo louder in the quiet because the enemy wants to fill the space God created for your spiritual training. He wants to infect the silence with fear so you abandon the breakthrough that is forming beneath the surface. The attacks that hit you during God's silent seasons are not random. They are strategic. They aim at your identity, your worth, your calling, and your focus. He goes after relationships that matter. He stirs confusion in your mind. He triggers past wounds. He makes you overthink everything. He disrupts your peace. He attacks your sleep. He amplifies loneliness. These attacks hit when God is silent because the enemy wants to take advantage of your vulnerability. But what the enemy calls an opportunity, God calls training. God allows certain battles not to harm you, but to harden your spiritual armor. You cannot walk in the fullness of your calling without learning how to withstand pressure. You cannot carry spiritual authority without learning how to resist spiritual darkness. You cannot become a leader in the kingdom without learning how to stand when everything pushes against you. The battles you face in silence are the battles that shape your endurance. Think of every season where you felt spiritually attacked. You survived attacks that should have broken you. You endured storms that would have crushed someone else. You stood firm even when your heart was trembling. That resilience didn't come from comfort, it came from conflict. God forged strength in your spirit by allowing battles, not by removing them. Every attack taught you something: how to recognize spiritual manipulation, how to guard your peace, how to pray with power instead of panic, how to discern spirits, and how to depend on God even when you couldn't feel Him. In those silent seasons, when attacks felt relentless, heaven was not ignoring you, it was strengthening you. Angels were surrounding you. God was monitoring every step. Not a single attack reached you without His permission. And if He permitted it, He intended it to grow something in you. The enemy may have meant it for destruction, but God repurposed it for development. The enemy attacks you hardest when you are closest to a breakthrough. He senses the shift in the spiritual realm. He sees the doors forming before you see them. He knows the elevation coming your way. If he can't stop the blessing, he tries to break the vessel. If he can't block your purpose, he tries to discourage your spirit. If he can't prevent your calling, he tries to cripple your confidence. But every attack you endured became proof of your calling. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on people going nowhere. He targets threats. He targets light. He targets chosen ones. And the reason he hit you so hard is because you carry something he fears. Your spiritual growth threatens him. Your healing threatens him. Your discernment threatens him. Your destiny threatens him. And your connection to God, whether silent or not, is the greatest threat of all. Chosen one, the season where God feels silent is not the season where he leaves you. It is the season where he tests what he built inside you. And the season where the enemy attacks you is not the season where you're weak. It is the season where your spirit is rising. The pressure you feel is proof that heaven is preparing you for something greater. So do not mistake the battle for abandonment. Do not confuse warfare with defeat. Do not interpret the silence as God turning away. You are being strengthened. You are being sharpened. You are being prepared. And everything the enemy tried to use against you will become the very thing God uses to elevate you. The enemy attacked you in silence because he sensed what you could not yet see. Your breakthrough was getting close. God was never absent. You were being repositioned. When it felt like everything was falling apart, God was actually putting you into alignment. Chosen one, take a deep breath and let this truth settle into your spirit. You were never abandoned. You were never forgotten. You were never left to fend for yourself. What you lived through, the confusion, the closed doors, the unexpected losses, the painful endings, was not evidence of God stepping away. It was evidence of God stepping in. You weren't being destroyed. You were being repositioned. Every time something in your life collapsed without warning, heaven was shifting the ground beneath you to move you toward a future you could not yet see. You thought you were losing stability, but God was removing what was no longer aligned with your destiny. You thought you were being pushed backwards, but God was pulling you out of places your spirit had outgrown. You thought your life was unraveling, but God was unraveling the things that would eventually hold you back. What felt like chaos was actually divine architecture. Closed doors were one of the clearest signs of His protection. The opportunities you begged for, the connections you prayed to keep, the paths you tried to force, all of them shut because God saw further than you could. Some doors were sealed because they led to spiritual danger. Some relationships ended because their presence would have derailed your calling. Some environments rejected you because your growth required separation. Rejection was not a weapon against you, it was a shield around you. Delays, too, were not punishment. They were precise moments of positioning. Had certain things happened earlier, you wouldn't have been ready. Had certain blessings arrived before your character was strengthened, they would have broken you. Had God answered every prayer immediately, you would have settled for less than what He planned. Delays protected your destiny from premature exposure. Every season of waiting was a season of shaping, maturing, and preparing. And heartbreak, though it felt unbearable, was often the greatest redirection of all. When your heart was shattered, it forced you to release what was never meant for your future. God does not break hearts, but He does allow certain things to break away so the truth can be revealed. He knew the connections that could not walk with you into your next chapter. He knew the relationships that would drain your purpose. He knew the people who were temporary, even when your heart thought they were permanent. Heartbreak rerouted your life so your spirit could rise. Through all of this, God was not distant. He was deliberate. You didn't see Him, but you walked on paths He cleared. You didn't hear Him, but you survived storms He calmed. You didn't feel Him, but you were carried by strength that wasn't your own. You were being guided through doors you didn't choose, toward a destiny you didn't fully understand, for a purpose greater than what you imagined for yourself. Every shift was intentional. Every ending was strategic. Every disappointment was a direction. You were never falling apart. You were being guided into alignment with the life God crafted for you before you were born. Chosen one, when you look back later, you will see the pattern. You will see how every closed door pushed you into the right one. How every delay placed you in perfect timing. How every heartbreak freed you for something higher. God was never absent. He was moving you, quietly, lovingly, powerfully, into the future He prepared for you long before you ever questioned His presence. God heard you the first time. Before you leave this message, hear me. God never ignored you. He was answering you in a language your spirit was still learning. Chosen one, you have carried questions in your heart that few people know about. You have whispered prayers through tears, through exhaustion, through moments where faith felt thin and hope felt distant. You wondered if God heard you at all. You wondered if your voice mattered in heaven. You wondered if your prayers fell into emptiness. But the truth is this: God heard you the first time. He heard you long before the words formed on your lips. He heard you in the ache behind your silence. He heard you in the weight pressing on your chest. He heard you in the longing you didn't know how to express. His silence was never rejection. It was a response. It was guidance. It was protection. It was preparation. God answers in ways our human hearts don't always recognize. Sometimes He speaks through peace instead of words. Sometimes He speaks through delays instead of open doors. Sometimes He speaks through redirection rather than approval. And sometimes He speaks through silence, because silence forces your spirit to mature in ways comfort never will. What felt like heaven closing its ears was actually God strengthening your discernment, expanding your faith, and teaching you how to recognize His presence beyond emotion. You are chosen, not because you are perfect, but because you carry a calling that requires depth. And depth is built in the quiet. Depth is built in the waiting. Depth is built in the stretching. You have endured seasons you didn't understand, battles you didn't deserve, losses you didn't expect, and storms you didn't feel prepared for. But each one shaped you. Each one refined you. Each one pulled you closer to the person God created you to become. And now, as this message draws to a close, I want you to hold on to this truth. You were never walking alone. Even in the moments where you questioned your worth, your purpose, your strength, or your future, God's hand was on you. He never left you. He never overlooked you. He never stopped working on your behalf. His silence carried intention. His timing carried wisdom. His redirection carried love. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not lost. You are exactly where you are meant to be in this chapter of your story. Chosen one, breathe deeply and rest in the knowledge that God is still guiding you, still shaping you, still preparing you for what He promised. Your prayers were not ignored. They were answered in ways your spirit is only now beginning to understand. And the journey ahead of you is far greater than the chapter behind you.